are you, everybody? Welcome to a very special LinkedIn Live. We're doing a Monday edition, hopping on, talking about some subjects that are near and dear to our hearts, and also things that we think that will give value to everybody out there who wants to do public speaking or more presentations. So, Matteo, could you please introduce yourself and your background and some of the things you're doing lately?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Hi, everybody. My name is Matheo Cadena, and I'm currently the chapter lead of Type Thursday Los Angeles. And if you haven't heard of us, we're like type geeks, and we geek out over typography and design and the application and use of type across all kinds of applications like user interface, from packaging to graphic design, signage, wayfinding, and stuff you might see at Comic-Con too, because how do you get around at any convention? You get around with signage and typography that guides you all along the way. So that's me, a little bit about me. Michael, how about you?
Yes, well, we're friends, colleagues, but I'm also a chapter lead of Type Thursday Phoenix, and you were instrumental in helping me with that. We've been friends from Los Angeles. I'm now in Phoenix. But we've been design colleagues. We were on Type Thursday Los Angeles together, AIGA Los Angeles together. I'm a brand designer. I'm a graphic design educator and also an Adobe community expert. And I have been trying very hard this year to do more speaking. And there's a lot of value in speaking. It also helps my teaching. It helps most every facet of what I do. If I do a branding project, I have to present, I have to show my work and also show why these are decision-making elements that I've chosen for these projects. So I actually have been remiss on any training, and I think a lot of designers are like that. They don't get the training to do this properly, and a lot of them, at least I did. I hid behind my bosses. I would let my bosses present my work, and then it would just be given back to me for changes. But when I had to take a lead, I actually had to do my own presenting. So was that the case for you as well?
In my career, so I should also mention that I've done graphic design, I've done web design, I've done UX UI design, and then I worked most recently 7 years as an in-house designer at a small company where I was brought into the business table because I was hired as a freelancer, and then I sort of converted that into a salary position by educating my team, and I was presenting my ideas, my work, and everything I had learned from AIGA about how design can be at the business table and enhance the business overall. I was teaching that to my clients, and this client in particular loved it. They loved the leadership they saw in me and the presentation skills that I had at that time, that I had gained through Type Thursday, that I had gained through AIGA, my work there. And they brought me in and they were like, can we work with you full time? And I was like, absolutely, yes. They saw the value of design at the business table, because I never just made it about a logo or a package design or a web design, as those were or UI design, but I told them it's about the ecosystem of how we design for your customer and how we design experiences for your customer, and how these little touch points like the packaging or the website are parts of that experience, and we can make that better. So they loved the idea early on, and I gained all of that thanks to that ability to talk about the value of design through presenting or being in the rooms at AIGA Los Angeles with you on the board, and then our business meetings, or also in our public events, and then also with Chris Lim Chin pulling me into Type Thursday Los Angeles, and Rachel Elnar giving me the push in LA to be like, learn more and do more and be in public speaking positions more. So I was lucky that I was shy, but I had the right people to pull me in, and I saw the value right away that I brought it to my clients right away in my career. That was a little bit different on that end.
Yeah, what we do is so visual, and sometimes we make the decisions, and sometimes what I like to say also is like design is sometimes invisible, and the best design is you don't know it, but the most visible design is bad design. So
Yeah.
you'll know when a typography is off, or something's
Yes.
out of place, or off, or off balance. So a lot of the explanation is, this is why we're not changing things. We're not going to do this. This is why we did this, because it is that seamless process. So so speaking is very important in that, not wasting people's valuable time, getting to the point, getting to the strong points. But not everybody gets those chances. So how can you optimize your opportunities? And one thing that I've tried to do vigilantly this year is do more speaking engagements, get in front of people, especially in the sense that I've moved. I don't know a lot of the people here in Arizona anymore. I've lost a lot of those contacts. All my contacts are in California, Orange County, around the world on Zoom. But Arizona is new, so I'm making new relationships. So on that note, I was given an opportunity to speak at Comic-Con. Now this sounds like, oh, this is amazing. Like, you know, you've probably done this before. Well, it was actually the first time I've spoken. I've had probably opportunities to do it in the past, but I am not someone who has taken advantage of these opportunities. But this year, I definitely wanted to do that. I spoke at WonderCon earlier this year in Anaheim, but I've also spoken other places too. And one of the things that it's very valuable. Plus, people know Comic-Con, right? But it just didn't happen overnight, and I had to embrace it and also understand what was I going to talk about, because comic books is not my area of expertise, but graphic design, other things related to it is, and the wrestling part of it, because it was a wrestling panel. So let me start here. So this was the panel. It was called Not So Strange Bedfellows: The Relationship Between Comics and Pro Wrestling. So Matteo, right from the start, like what is your first impression of this? What would you think that you were going to get from this?
Like we said, like maybe hearing about how comic books and the artwork influenced these guys who are in pro wrestling, their costume design, because I used to love watching WWE, and the costumes were everything, right? And the characters, the personalities were everything. They were larger than life characters when they came to the stage. So I can imagine this being at Comic-Con, and with this like relationship between comics and pro wrestling, that it's gonna have a light of this is how they inspired us to do what we did. That would be my best guess.
Yeah. So as someone who probably doesn't know either side of this, the comic part or the wrestling part of it, that you're pretty much spot on. And what the panel basically, and it's been around for like over 15 years, both at WonderCon and Comic-Con.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's yes, Josh Waldrop is the founder and publisher of Ultima Comics. I know him from my pro wrestling days. He was in production. He was also involved with a lot of wrestling promotions in a lead capacity for the production, and so like he's always been there. He's always been one of my great supporters, and I've never thought to like, oh, I'd love to be on this panel to talk about my days of pro wrestling, but also my graphic design background. So I'll go into that a little bit more, but like basically it's about storytelling, and we talk about this a lot. Great storytelling has different elements. It also has different visual aesthetics, and comics is not that far removed from how they structure pro wrestling, because there's always a hero and a villain. What are the visual cues to know the difference between the two? What is the buildup? You know, how do you create empathy for characters? How do you even structure panels and how it's laid out, and how to have emphasis, and how to entertain a crowd, both in a comic sense, because people love reading, they want more, but also a television wrestling scenario as well. So there's a lot of similarities here, and I could speak to the wrestling part of it. I could also speak to the design part of it, because I did branding, I did website design, I did flyers, I did also the costume design, the mask design, which I'll go into, and so this was a great panel to be on. And you know, I didn't realize this. I thought to myself that I wasn't into comics, but actually I was. I used to read magazines all the time. So
I love magazine.
Yeah. I just read comic magazine. I didn't even realize that, it was like, okay. I was like, humor was more my jam rather than the like a Superman comic or X-Men.
Yeah.
And not that I watched a lot of. I'm not a big movie watcher. I watch movies, but I'm not super into it. But more comedies I'm into. But
Yeah.
that's what kind of attracted me to pro wrestling. It was cartoony. It was also like there's a lot of humor involved in it, but it was also athletic. And I grew up playing soccer and baseball, but I didn't grow up in wrestling. Even when I went to high school, I wasn't on the wrestling team. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I watched TV, but then I started making my own magazines. And my
Oh,
first I was working for a record store at the time,
yeah.
and so I wanted to do my own
Which record store?
fanzine about what's that?
Which record store?
Oh, Zia Records in Phoenix, Arizona, and
Live
it's
in
actually
Arizona, you know, your records is famous.
yes. Yeah, and it's
Yes.
funny too because this is the worst part about me. I'm the worst person to promote myself. I wish somebody else would promote me. You're absolutely right on that. It's actually a seminal record store here in Arizona, and I started there in the
Yeah.
early '90s as a sign painter and doing desktop publishing. So within that course of that, this was like in the middle '90s. I decided I want to do my own like, music, also pop culture, also like pro wrestling, and that's what this was. And Rudos was the name for bad guy wrestlers in Lucha
Oh,
Libre. Yeah, so that's why I chose that name specifically because it was just such a unique name. And then I made these magazines and they were all glossy and everything. They were way better than like the newsprint. I knew I wanted to do a little bit more, but I would travel around and go
mhm.
to these different events and then report on them. And I had other people that contributed to the magazine as well. We actually the magazine on the right there. We actually went to Roswell. It was the 49th anniversary of the Roswell crash. Supposedly, it's kind of like a
Yeah.
myth. There's also like they actually lean into it. There was actually a little convention there, and
Oh, wow.
we wanted to go the next year. That would have been the 50th, and supposedly the Foo Fighters were supposed to play there. And if you know anything
Oh,
about the Foo Fighters, that's that their name comes from like the UFO chases. It was the name of the I think the airplanes that chased the aliens supposedly. So there's a lot of lore in this, but I really
oh,
leaned into this
I
and
love the
wanted
lore.
to do the
We're here
stuff.
for the lore.
Yeah, exactly. So it was one of those things where like I didn't plan this, but I was like I just did it. And
This is great
uh,
because you're combining so many elements of history in there, from the Roswell crash or the aliens and like the mystery and the gaslighting from the government. We don't know, right? And then the Foo Fighters. And then you bring in this all
totally,
into the magazine and the culture. This is so cool. Sorry, go ahead.
totally. No, yeah, and you're right. It just from that, I actually met someone in Phoenix that was doing. They were actually a part of a promotion from Mexico called AAA, which is kind of ironic now because AAA was bought by WWE recently, which is like all these years later, it all comes around. But through this connection, I actually moved to Los Angeles in 1997, and then I started doing flyers for this person's promotion. It was a little independent promotion, and they're
Yeah.
starting up a wrestling school, but also uh, training wrestlers. And through this, I got a connection to doing artwork using my currency. I'm like, hey, if I do
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
branding and posters, I can train to be a wrestler. And I just really wanted just to try it. And it was way harder than I expected, as you can probably imagine. And
Yeah.
yeah, and um, my thoughts back then was like I was trying really hard not to get hurt, and I got hurt right away. I actually hurt my neck right away, and
Oh,
yeah, so it's some people say it's fake, but it's not. It may be choreographed, but it is absolutely real. The injuries are 100% real, and I had a
yeah.
lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Can I
then,
ask you what
yeah, go
with
for it.
when
Go for it.
back that slide? What time period was that? Because we went from Zia in the 90s, you were working there, you were doing the zines, and now this promotional work that you're doing. What year was this?
So this is 98, 99. So like
Okay.
literally within like 4 or 5 years. Like I hit the ground running,
Wow.
and I didn't
Yeah.
even. It's kind of funny to think back now that it was even that long ago that it was. But it went fast for me, but
Yeah.
it was not a fast process at all.
Well, what the reason I bring up what year is this is as a graphic designer, and who I grew up. I was born in '93, so I'm pretty young, but I was born into wrestling culture, watching that on the TV, and we would watch every like Hulk Hogan match or like, all the fights, and we'd be there for the villains and stuff. But then, as a graphic designer, looking at the work that the flyers that you made at this time, it also reminds me so much of like the early MTV punk rock, grunge era, like that whole like alternative era that was really popular in the 90s, which was going against the grain of like mainstream media. And what I can see is in your graphic design work and your type choices and your layout choices and your visual textures, like looking at Revolution and the way that's so like textured out and grunge in a way, it's giving me that 90s era type application of graphic design, and so I love it. I mean, I love seeing this and contextualizing it to the time that you made it, because like, nowadays if we were to see this, we'd be like, wait a second, that's like, what is, I think this is coming back, this style of this era. But to know you made this in the 90s, pre all these like tools that can just like, you can click a button now and make it look like it was from a retro era, but you actually had to go and make that yourself. And
Yeah.
in this timeline, where you were designing, you were really creating these looks yourself, or seeing stuff and mirroring it. So it's cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you're right. It grabbed from like maybe too many different inspirations, but it became what it is. And it's probably there's a lot of text in here. And if I were to design this today, I probably made different type choices, and also less type choices. But that's the way these posters were. It was always like it was literally like a circus, like how like a
Yeah.
circus poster was like, it's supposed to like just grab your attention, like what is this thing and where's it at and how can I be a part of it? And it looks like dirty and underground, and you're absolutely right.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's what we were going for. And then
exactly. I love that.
and so like that kind of spawned into different things. I was doing merchandising. I was doing the
Mm,
costume design. I was also doing a lot of the t-shirts and the merchandising of this, but also getting into the multimedia of it. Back then we would make DVDs of things, and also like actually it was a lot of it was VHS tapes, and those VHS
oh,
tapes would go literally around the world. There was a lot of tape traders, so people would want to see like what's going on in California. We want to see like what's going on in Japan. So that like tape trading was like a big deal at the time. And
yeah.
then this didn't happen overnight, but this is like in 2004. So I finally got a chance to be Disco Machine. And
Yeah.
now this is the whole thing. I'm actually by nature, I'm a pretty modest person. And only recently have I been encouraged to talk about this part of my life. I've actually not talked about a lot of this only because I wanted to talk about graphic design. I feel like people didn't take me legitimately as a designer because I did this type of thing and was kind of like, if you're into it, you're super into it. But if you're not, you could probably see us like what's going on? Well, I don't get this, and it's a little bit too much for me. So when I was trying to get like more corporate jobs, obviously I wouldn't want to talk about this era of my
Yeah.
life. I probably like, but the first thing that people do is and I didn't do this for people, but people would do it for me. Is as soon as I meet them, they'd run and go Google me,
Yeah.
right? And then all this stuff would come up. So, not that I didn't want to talk about it, but I always figured it was like I wanted to do more in graphic design. I wanted to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
But now I've been when I'm doing more talking, like this part of it is like it's a super huge icebreaker. It's like
Yeah.
My Clark Kent to my Superman, like
Exactly.
few people get to do something like this. So um
I see
yeah,
it as Michael Mondragon's like superhero alter ego, once I saw it, and you revealed it to me, as of recently, and I got to see your YouTube channel and go back and watch your wrestling videos and your persona. And it's this whole alter ego that comes to life on the stage. And I have a background in martial arts, and then I grew up watching pro wrestling or like the wrestling matches. So like you said, I understand that there's a lot of athleticism that goes into this to be able to pull off these movements. It's not easy. And then to also, you're adding a layer of entertainment with the personality, the persona that you've created. The costume design, I think you talked about stuff like that, like having your hand in costume design, which was super cool. So for me to see this like superhero alter ego of yours, I was like so excited. And nowadays, everyone is talking about how do you merge your intersectional identities or passions and find the intersection that makes you unique in a world where, you know, creativity can be done in the click of a button. How do you do something that stands out from the crowd? We'll find the things that, you know, you're passionate about that nobody else is in that intersection, right? So it's like for you, you've got the pro wrestling background, you've got the sign painting, the graphic design of the 90s, and now you were able to build your own identity and persona, influenced by the 70s era, clearly disco machine. So also pulling from 70s culture and dance. And so I'm all for this. I think if you ever watched wrestling in the 90s or 2000s, you see how cool this is to like develop your own persona and a superhero alter ego on the stage. So well done, Michael.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And for context, I never thought I would do this once, let alone like I did it like 500 times. Like I had about
Oh my
500
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
I was also I wrestled in Alaska, Hawaii, California, Arizona. I wrestled in Germany, England, Japan. I had 2 tours of Japan.
Wow.
So yeah, so again, I super overachieved on this, and again, I designed my whole costume. I designed other people's costumes, other people's masks, and I never talked about that.
Yeah.
And I was also on an MTV show. So
Oh my
going back
gosh.
to my I
Yeah.
grew up on MTV, and then I was on an MTV show,
And the fact that you were
and
on the show. Wow. Wow.
yeah, and it was just a short-lived show in 2006. It was called Wrestling Society X,
Mhm.
and I actually had me and my partner, my tag team partner, we actually had the most matches of the season that we had, and so they
Woo.
loved it. They loved that we were like we were goofy and we did fun stuff, and through that, um,
Crazy.
this is well, now he wrestles as Seth Rollins, but this is at the time he was Tyler Black, and he was just a kid from Iowa who was wrestling. He's actually the WWE champion right now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
as of
You
this
got to
weekend.
wrestle.
Yeah.
What? You got to wrestle with a WWE champion. Like again, my sister and I growing up in the 90s, we watched WWE like every night. Oh my gosh, we were so looking forward to all those fights, to all the drama, to all the like entertainment of the characters, and we'd get so hyped for it. We also play the video games like Celebrity Deathmatch, I think it was called.
Mhm.
Video games like that you could be wrestling in. We would buy those right away. We'd play those like nonstop. So wrestling had a huge influence in the 90s and 2000s to all these generations that we probably didn't even realize until looking back now. So wow, this is so cool to see, Michael.
Yeah, so I mean, it was just like I had to throw this in here because he's I've wrestled a WWE champion. I've wrestled actually a few of them. This is well, he was Kevin Steen back then. This is Kevin Owens, if you know your WWE. And then the guy on the right is his name is Fergal Devitt, but he wrestles as Finn Balor. So I wrestled these guys when they not that when they were, I won't say they were inexperienced, but they were less experienced, but they were very, very good at the time. And they were about 10 to 15 years younger than me. So I wasn't, my goal wasn't to be a WWE wrestler, although I could have had those opportunities. My thing was during this whole time, I was still doing graphic design
That's
full
great.
time. I was also a father. I was also, I was definitely burning the candle at both ends when it came to all of this. But I mean, again, it gave me these amazing opportunities that I have not talked about enough. And I was also in a magazine. I was at FHM
Uh,
magazine. Yeah. So after making magazines, I was actually in a magazine. But again, it was all the injuries were too much.
yeah,
I knew that if I was going to do this longer, because I did it for like 13 I think 13 years.
13 years, Michael. Yeah, I was going to ask you when were you in the magazine? So you started at Zia's in the 90s,
Yeah.
designing at Zia Records, then you went from the zines, then you went to the wrestling stuff and where you were designing for wrestlers in 2000s and becoming a wrestler yourself. Now here you are having a career in wrestling and then get featured in a magazine. What year was this? And that's so cool to see the full circle.
This was 2006, 7-ish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Wow.
definitely again like everything wrestling is one of those things like it's if you're I wasn't super dedicated to it like other people wanted to be. They wanted it to be their job. I
Yeah.
had a job and this was like my
Yeah.
my supplemental thing, but I kept on having the right connections, and every time I wanted to leave or I got frustrated, it's like being in a band, you know, it's like your gigs are drying up, and then as soon as I wanted to get out or things had gotten rough for me, like there's a lot of egos involved in this, but
Mm.
all of a sudden a new opportunity would come up, and this was another one. I was like, I got to get out of this, and then like all these things like would come up, so I just stuck with it, and then eventually I met the guy that I bought the magazine of. So I bought this in
Oh my God.
1985, and then I met him in 2008, and then he
Wow.
died not shortly after that. So I was very lucky to meet him. This is Roddy Piper. If you don't know who he was a big deal, and he was super nice. And they say don't meet your heroes because they're sometimes not the greatest. But Roddy was fantastic. He was very nice to me.
Oh,
So
this is so cool.
so let's get back to Comic-Con. So that I guess my credibility is, obvious to speak on a panel at Comic-Con, but I've never done it, and I only recently this year did I find kind of my angle as far as like what I wanted to talk about. There was actually another guy who actually couldn't make the panel. So the guy standing next to me is actually my good friend Scott Loss, who I started Pro Wrestling Guerrilla with. So we started our own wrestling promotion. And if you know anything about starting any business, it's tough. But starting a wrestling promotion and then having it was actually six of us, six wrestlers starting it. Nobody gave us a chance at all because they said that like you can't be wrestlers and start a promotion. Well, that promotion is actually still going. Although it's on hiatus right now, it actually went for like over 20 years.
20
And
years.
yeah, I left it about 5 years into it to pursue other things, but it
Yeah.
still goes. It was still going. It was a feeder for WWE, and
Cool.
I think that that's what a lot of the people, kind of know. Like wrestling, it's like one of the biggest independent wrestling below WWE, AEW as well. Also has a lot of people in there. So,
Wow.
but
Wow.
what's your knowledge of Comic Con? I know that you recently did some research on Comic Con.
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in New Hampshire as in a small town and just like not a lot of opportunities for getting together like as a comic geek. And I grew up reading more manga and Japanese comics manga. I was inspired by the stories though of like Spider-Man in my era of TV and cartoons. We didn't have all these streaming channels where you could just like watch things on demand. So you had to turn on a TV and look for what was playing. And if I'd get lucky if Spider-Man was on. And so I basically watched the TV adapted version of the comics, right? And I didn't even understand at that time the significance of these comic book writers becoming such a success that their comics became a TV series that I got to the privilege to watch growing up, like and Batman and Robin and Superman, like so just crossing from Marvel to DC and all the things that made it to TV animation at that time. And for me, that was the height of my whole childhood. I loved that stuff. And so growing up, I always said one day I want to go to San Diego Comic-Con. Never knew how that was going to happen. My best friend Aaron Grinnell and I would always talk about we're going to cosplay at Comic-Con in San Diego one year. We still haven't done that. We're going to make that happen. I got to reach out to him. Aaron, let's talk. And yeah, I still think it would be super cool to go to Comic-Con and like see it in person. So in my research, I started to understand that Comic-Con started as a really, really small convention for these artists, right? And I think it started at around like 30 to 70 people. and it was in, a small timey space, nothing as big as the convention center now. They got lucky to have a hotel look at hosting them. And people were, even back then, because of how just like unique it was, it got people, to want to sort of sleep there in the hotel that they had, the sleeping in the hallways, like not even sleeping in rooms, because it just to afford the trip, they wanted to meet their favorite artists. And this was like back in the 1970s. And it grew from that 100 to 300 people pretty quickly, because it was just something that actually got to connect fans with the artist of the time. And this is pre social media, so you couldn't connect with your favorite artist online, right? This is all pre that. So to fly, to San Diego and meet these people in person was huge, because this was the only way that you'd ever get to have contact and hear these people's stories. So if anything, it was the early days of influencers, right? Because like these artists were the people you wanted to meet and talk to and hear their stories and know what they were up to and what projects were they working on. And this audience came and traveled to see that. So I think it's really cool to see how Comic-Con evolved from that humble beginnings, and then grew so large to this day. Economic impact of Comic-Con is $140 million annually that they bring to San Diego, and all, like, not just like they've moved to the convention center, but all of San Diego is activated. That whole Gaslight District is activated, like all these businesses locally. So it's sprawled and spread way beyond just the halls of the convention center or a small hotel convention, right? And it's gone to take over the whole entire city with cosplayers and brand activations and people having fun, and business owners getting into it and stuff. So really beautiful to sort of learn the history of Comic-Con and see why it's such a culturally significant piece of our time.
Yeah, and I went to it when I first moved to Los Angeles. It might have been even 98 or 99, and it was still very small. Like it
Yeah.
was still it's still very artist based. And I actually had my mentor and my first boss from Zia, her and her husband went to it. Oh, you have to go. It's like amazing. And I went on a Sunday, and there was like not a lot of people there. It was great. And only now that the big television and movies, and it became like a place to announce movies and have bigger presence past like comics. It now it's totally changed everything. Like you can't even get around anymore. It's definitely changed the vibe of it. But I mean, again, not in a bad way. But even like the fact that we were talking about before, it's like there's so many things that are around it now. Like Comic Con itself is actually like a moat. Like I mean, it's like on an island. You have to get past the moat of all this other stuff. It's like a second wave.
Yeah.
But it's still great. And they've always said that they want to keep it in Comic Con, or I'm sorry, in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
but not move it to Anaheim or Los Angeles to get bigger, because again, it I don't know, it may not have the same feel, but also it's very San Diego, and it's great for San Diego. It helps the commerce there and economy there, and it's a great place. It's super nice, and it's easier to get around. So this panel, again, we talked about it. So Scott Losbean he actually filled in for someone who couldn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
He actually taught me something actually very valuable being on these panels, which was, and I was sitting back, letting everybody kind of talk about their experiences, what their thoughts were to the panelists, or sorry, the moderator, which is Josh, and he's second from the left. And he would like throw out questions to different people, and I would sit back. But Scott taught me, like, he goes, you have to jump in, like whenever you have a chance to get your voice in, and don't be afraid to jump in. And that's what creates the best panels and the best discussions. And we were in a room of 400. It was about a quarter full, which was great for a Sunday. So and it was a big room, but there was a lot of people there to see it, and a lot of people knew like our background and that. The guy in the middle, his brother was a WWE wrestler named Paul London, and then the guy next to him with kind of like the mohawk making the face, he was in a band called Guar. He was an original member of Guar. Now, if you've known Guar, they were actually music, but they were also these big characters. They actually wore these big costumes and they
Yeah.
would stomp around, and they had a very pro wrestling feel to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 I had seen clips from my cousin, I think, who introduced me to Guar, and I was just like shocked. Like, what the heck is this? You know, like it's a little bit before my time, I think, coming up, but it was cool because, like, at that time, there was nothing else like them, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like a comic come to life,
On
if
stage
a
as a
band
band.
were to do that, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
And there's they had a whole backstory as well where they were, I think that they were found in Antarctica and they were chipped out of ice, and then a sleazy P martini, which was I believe their manager, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
basically made them go and tour the world and all this stuff. It had a great story and literally a comic uh, come to life, and he was an original member of that. So again, this was born from other talks that I've been having, more just talking about not my background, but talking about Illustrator, Photoshop, teaching people. And I never knew that speaking, because I haven't done it a lot. I say that I'm a novice, but I've been doing it for 10 years. Is
Yeah.
speaking, and I feel like I haven't even started yet. So, I mean, what brought you to speak, and how were you encouraged, and how do you refine that skill?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think it all started when I moved to LA and I started going, I didn't know anyone in Los Angeles, and I had moved here from Arizona because I grew up in New Hampshire, talked about that, moved to Arizona, in different parts throughout my life. But when I was 18, made that switch and was there in Arizona. And then I think in 2017 is when I moved to LA, and I didn't know anyone here. So I was like, I need to meet people, and how. And so I was always a part of the AIGA design, membership. And so I was like, I see this is a way that I've heard that you can meet people, but I hadn't really plugged into too many events. I had just recently experienced Phoenix Design Week prior to moving from Arizona, and I loved it. I met a lot of designers there. So I was like, hey, maybe if I go to one of these AIGA LA events, I'll meet cool people in my city too, just the same way. And sure enough, I did. I loved the first event, and I was like, how can I be a part of like making the magic happen? And that became volunteering. And so I started volunteering behind the scenes for about 2 years, and was very outspoken in the meetings though, to say like, here's what I'm experiencing, here's what's cool, here's what's working, here's what the audience is loving, to help sort of plan upcoming events and how we can engage the community better. And then the board saw me as a contributing leader, and they invited me to be a part of the board. And so I said yes. So I sort of worked on the different aspects of membership, and then worked on event programming, and then got tapped to be on programming and development as well, and then later as vice president. So all the while talking to a small group of people helped me build up into then presenting to larger groups of people, because I think I had also been working on a project in typography, and I saw that it wasn't good to my design eyes, but to my engineers who are they're coders that was working on as a UX UI designer. I was the lead on this project, and I had to design this app interface. And the front end engineers and back end engineers were like, "Oh, this is great," but to me, I was like, the typography is missing something in all of these interface flows, and there's something that's not quite right. So I looked for typography related events, and I found Type Thursday in about 2018, and I just started going. And at every Type Thursday, the audience gives feedback to the presenters, and I was like raising my hand to give feedback because I was like, oh, this is really cool. I like this. And then Crystal Chin, who was the chapter lead at that time of Type Thursday Los Angeles, she was like, hey, why don't you present something? I can tell by the way you get enthusiastic and engaged that you would actually be an amazing presenter. And at that time, I was a little shy. I was just like, oh, I don't think I can be in front of a crowd of people. Da, da, da. And I was like, but she kept asking me, and I kept coming to Type Thursday like month over month, because it's once a month. And eventually she got me to crack, and I was like, okay, I'll present, I'll do it, I promise. And so that, I think, was my first experience in 2018 presenting to an audience bigger than 5 people or 10 people, and I loved it so much. I love the experience of presenting and getting feedback from the audience. And I brought my project back every month over the next year or like 8 months. And I was like one of the longest presenters to continuously show up every month, share the project and the evolution, for like, yeah, for however long that period was. And the audience got to see that project that I was working on grow and evolve because of their feedback and what I was learning, which was super cool. So I got this great mentorship while getting the experience to be able to present my ideas in front of a large group of people who are all really creative and smart and savvy in what they do. So that leveled up my skills so that when I had landed later in life and with this other client, I was like able to just present to them in a better way, in a way that made sense to people who didn't understand design. I could kind of now bridge the gap between business thinkers and design thinkers and get them all to think and share common language. And it just made my career, I feel like, get more valuable at that point when I could bridge the gap between presenting to creatives and presenting to business like people. So that was a little bit about how I came up to be a presenter, which I've now, as of 2025, coming back in to run the Type Thursday Los Angeles as a chapter lead myself. And every month I'm in front of people presenting and also growing our audience, as well. So it's exciting. I get this excitement that builds up every time, but there's still a little of that nervousness energy that you've got to convert into excitement and fuel, and then just like shine your light in front of a group of people. It's tough. It's not easy to get up there in front of everybody and communicate your ideas effectively. So, but it has changed and shaped my career, I would say. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I admire that, because it's like that's even more commitment, than the fact that you had to do it over a year, and you're just like, if you don't have anything, it's kind of be embarrassing, right? Or like I didn't, and I'm sure there's times when you didn't do as much or you overdid stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's
yeah,
like, but I think the bigger lesson here is that talking, showing your work, it actually holds your feet to the fire a little bit, as far as like helping your career, helping you be visible in a time where I never found value in this. And I won't say that it was because of I didn't want to do it. Back when I was doing work, it was more about the work. So like people that did the work, they're like, oh, I want to get that person to do that for me, right?
yeah,
But I feel like now in the social media age, showing how you do the process actually is more engaging and actually gets you more opportunities
mm,
than just doing the work and just being like, okay, that's it. It's like, or not having a face behind it.
yeah,
And I think that it's much more. Are you finding that too, like in the social media age, where people know you before they even meet you?
yeah.
They know your name and your face, but they have not formally met you.
Yeah, that exact thing happened to me because I was at the Adobe UCLA event that happened earlier this year in April, and a guy pulled me out of the crowd, introduced himself, David Meza. Hey, David, if you're watching. And I was like so impressed because he's like, "Hey, you're the Type Thursday guy, right?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's me. How do you know?" And he's like, I've been watching online and I've seen you post about it, and I've always wanted to come to one of the events in person, but I hadn't had the chance to come yet. And I was like, now's your chance because we're bringing it back, and it'll be, June and then July. So he's now come to both events, and he loves it. He loves the experience in the community, and that's exactly like what you're saying. There is like the social media era now allows us to expand our reach beyond just the people we know. And I'm always very shocked at who's paying attention, because I post stuff and I just think it's going to nowhere, avoid, but I just have gotten in the habit of like sharing things from doing all the event marketing with AIGA and my previous work and employer. So now I just start sharing things that I'm up to and doing, and people will message me or comment when they see me in person and be like, hey, thank you for keeping inspiring messages going on your page, on your story, on your Instagram. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't even think anyone was paying attention to this stuff. I was just putting it out there for my sake, and it's a really cool feeling when people resonate with you. And I think that's what's so special about Comic-Con is like you get to meet these people who are artists and hear their stories and have a connection and say, hey, you inspired me. Your stories inspired me. and your artwork inspired me. So I think that's what makes the San Diego Comic-Con so special and unique, is that it's bringing people together. Even though we have these digital channels now where we're very lucky to like follow people, nothing replaces that in-person experience. And part of my research showed in the pandemic, Comic-Con went dark, right? So in 2020 there was no Comic-Con all the way up until 2022, when I think this is when they first brought it back. And Hollywood has now stepped back with the Hollywood strikes that had gone on, and people were protesting against all these big agencies and media media conglomerates. And so they've stepped out of Comic-Con, and they're not putting money like they were into it, or having these big celebrity reveals like they were. And now people in the community are saying Comic-Con has gone back to its roots, which is focusing on the artist, meeting the artist, and fans having a shared experience in person together, to be able to cosplay together, to be able to have fun and share their personal experiences in the room, and to take over San Diego at large now and turn it into a Mardi Gras for geeks and nerds, and we're type nerds, so we get it. We're also like, for me, I'm a Japanese anime nerd. That's my whole thing. And if which also kind of wanted me to I wanted to throw it at you, Michael. If you were ever going to go to Comic-Con and cosplay, who would you cosplay? So for me, I cosplay as, this is from Naruto, a Japanese anime, Itachi. He's a ninja, and he's badass. If you know his story, then he's basically one of those guys who comes in as a bad guy, but slowly you find out he's been working to help out the main mission and grow another character. So I won't give any spoilers away, hopefully. But yeah, he's amazing, because he's just like evil genius masterminds. And I've always loved Itachi, and I was like, I would love to cosplay him some way as a ninja, Comic-Con, showing up and like posing and stuff. One of these days it's gonna happen. So my question to you, Michael, is if you were going to go to Comic-Con, who would you cosplay as?
That's funny. I almost went as Disco Machine. My character.
I was in my head. I was like, that would be cool. That would be cool to see him go as Disco Machine. You should.
What's the modern version of Disco Machine?
Oh my gosh.
But like I said, I didn't think that I was into comics, and it turns out I totally was. I used to follow comics, all the humor comics, like Mad Magazine, Crack Magazine. Yeah. But there was also one called Cartoons, which actually was a humorous like car magazine, which we're very short lived. But then I didn't even put two and two together. But I used to read the Sunday comics, so like Family Circus, Peanuts. There was also like Beetle Bailey, Wizard of Iz, Ziggy.
Anytime I could read Marmaduke, I was excited. Yeah.
And I was like, I know all these. And then also, I also followed, like, the last time I went to Comic-Con, actually, I said that I went to Comic-Con in the 90s, but I took my son, who's now 23 and loves all the manga and all the anime and all that. So he's super into it. And we actually went, and I saw a magazine. His name is Sergio Aragones. And he did a draw off with somebody. So I got to watch them. They had like about 10 minutes to draw this certain thing. And then the crowd voted on who they liked better. It was actually very fun and very personable. This was maybe in 2015 or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. And I would choose like this, that really, there was actually, and this is so deep, you can't even imagine. You might even have to look this up. And but there was a guy named Andy Capp, and he was just this guy who was like, he had like a derby, and he used to have the cigarette out of his mouth, and he used to be this crotchety guy that would just walk around, and he had like a wife that would always give him grief. And then he would like, he goes, I'm just gonna go to the bar, and then he would go, but it was like one of those 70s comics, I think, like maybe 60s. I would dress up as Andy Capp, which is such a deep reference. You can't even imagine how
Comic-Con space is for. There's so many people there who like in the research I was seeing Silent Bob makes an appearance every year at Comic-Con.
Yes.
Silent Bob. And I was like, oh, that's one of those things that you only know, growing up here and like experiencing the comics here and like being nested in the culture. And so these like deep references this is the place to bring them to life. And
if one person If one person knew who I was, it would be a mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Actually, I did that one year for Halloween. I dressed up as Vivian from The Young Ones,
Yeah,
which was a British TV. It was a punk. I'll have to show you the picture. It's like amazing. But
yeah.
like one person came up to me and they said, "You're my hero," and I'm
Oh,
like, "I did it just for you." The rest
yeah,
of the people just thought I was a punk, but
yeah,
I was actually this very specific character from a British comedy. And so yeah, that's the fun of Comic Con. Uh,
yeah.
but
I
also there was another thing. Go ahead, ask your question.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I love the commonality between geeking out in Comic Con and people who get the references and creatives in the room who are inspired by other creatives in the room and Type Thursday. So if you are a designer or creative or love typography nerd, or you trying to get into typography and understand it better, like I was, because I had basically many different challenges with typography, and I didn't get it, reading it online or trying to take a class, like it wasn't clicking. But going to the Type Thursday events in my city, I found a community. We geeked out over the same stuff. We see a font, we laugh at it, or we love it, or we share other stuff, and it's like we get these little references that only we get. So it's that same spark in the room as when you go to Comic-Con, where it's a group of people who get exactly how you feel about a subject, and that's so creatively niche that but these other people get it, and you just light up with joy. So yeah.
Yeah, it's those serendipity moments that you're just like you can't. Well, I mean, Type Thursday is a perfect example of that. So we create these Thursday events so people that love letter forms can get together, and you like never know who's in the room and how they know each other. But it's like it's building this little community of like-minded people. And I'll give you a perfect example of Comic Con for this. So we were my buddy and I, who I wrestled with, he actually came to the panel, and we just were walking around trying to soak in up everything before they shut it down at 5 p.m. So we just kind of wandered around, and there's still a lot of people there. Maybe like at 4 o'clock when we were walking around, and we just wanted to see what was around and maybe something cool that we could find. And we found this Godzilla thing that he had went to in Tokyo earlier. We're like, oh wow, this is all coming back, and then we saw these other things. But then we saw this. It was a little like celebrity alley where these celebrities were signing stuff, and so, like I said, like if you didn't know who they were, you wouldn't know. But if you knew, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this person's right here, and you
Freaking
can, yeah, totally. So there's this woman. Her name is Ashley Eckstein.
out.
Now, I'm going to ask you real quick. Do you know who Ashley Eckstein is?
I'm terrible with celebrity names anyways.
Same here. Same here. I didn't know who she was, but she's a fashion label. She has her own fashion label, but she's most famous for voicing the role of let's see if I can see this, Ahsoka Tano in the Star Wars franchise. I believe she's in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And she was also Muffy on That's So Raven.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Okay.
Wow.
So random. I was like,
Raven.
yeah, it was way out of my likes and dislikes. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sitting right next to her was her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband is David Eckstein. Now, for a baseball fanatic like myself, David Eckstein was on the 2002 Los Angeles Angels World Championship team. He was also a World Series MVP for the St. Louis Cardinals, which is my team. So me and Kevin had an equal amount of, and we're just like, so meanwhile, this person, Ashley, is super more famous than David in this world.
Yeah.
And we went up to David. We're just like, hey, we're big fans and like whatever. And then he turns out he is a huge wrestling fan.
No way. No way.
Yeah, and so he came up and we started talking. They're like, "Oh, why are you here?" Like, "Oh, I was on like a pro wrestling panel," and he's like, "You were?" And so we talked for 20 minutes on wrestling, and I literally said this to him. I said, "If you told me this morning that I would come here and speak wrestling with a World Series MVP. I
What?
would have said like who would it was just an amazing coincidence.
Would not have believed.
Not a bit. And he
Yeah.
was super happy that anybody knew who he was. And I was like,
Oh, cool.
but there was people that obviously knew who he was, but it was like
Yeah.
in that world, she was super more famous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, that's what's the fun of all this. It's like,
Mhm.
like you never know who you're going to see or meet when you get yourself out of your element and actually embrace like who you are and put your story out there and talk about it. And these events will happen. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is super cool to hear. And it makes me also, as you were talking about like being on the panel and the whole experience of being on the panel, I'm kind of like, what was your favorite moment from being on the panel? What was your favorite theme or conversation that came up or question? Is there anything that stood out to you now looking back?
So I will definitely say it's always a super big flattering thing. Like whenever anybody says like to me, like when I first see them or I haven't seen them in a long time, hey, nice to see you. And I always say like it's nice to be seen. In this world, I can't believe people remember like the things that I did.
They
So
were,
like
yeah,
for instance, I'll say like, oh, I did Wrestling Society X. I expect nobody to even know what that is. And then people are like, hey, and I'm like,
they're clapping.
how do you know?
They
Like,
know.
I go, okay. I go, I
Yeah.
was also, a co-founder of Pro Wrestling Gorilla, and everybody's yeah. And I was like, how do you? It doesn't make sense. So like, even as an artist,
Yeah.
like when you put your things out in the world, and you said it before about your post, like you don't think you just thrown it out to the abyss,
Yeah.
and you don't expect that people see them or resonate with them because if you don't get feedback, how do you know? But there's a silent majority out there of
Yes.
people that are watching and inspired by you. And then
Mm.
afterwards, like people will come up and they say, oh, can I take a picture with you? And I remember you from all these other things. I'm like, absolutely. Or will you sign this? And I was like, I
You're like,
haven't, yeah.
you're
Even sign it. I
pleasantly
never thought I'd
surprised.
sign another autograph, it's like, but like people remember you or they're actually influenced by, like, for instance, a lot of parents, like for instance, if I was into it, I would have my son watch it and he's like, oh, I remember him from that thing that you showed me. So these things live,
Yeah.
out there and people remember them and they also like consume them years after.
Years
I
later.
think that's
Yeah.
the fun part of this. And I think the lesson as an artist, it doesn't have to, the adulation or the or even the people that are into you, it may not even be for 20 years, 50 years, but you could be a legend way after you're gone. So
Mm,
just put your stuff out there. You never know.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many stories like that. I'm thinking of like Keith Haring comes to mind in the LGBTQ plus artistry world of like his art to this day has touched all over the world. It's gone all over the world. His art and his brand and his style. And back then he was told his art wasn't good enough. He would never be an artist. He would never have a successful career. And it was during the AIDS epidemic. His art became huge because it was a talking testament of the time. And it's also, if you look at his line work, it's very inspired by probably comic book style and caricaturers. And so he probably had a huge influence of growing up here in the States. But now him having passed away and seeing his work everywhere, I still smile and get excited when I see someone wearing like a shirt with his artwork on it or his patterning, because it looks like it's straight out of a comic book, and then it's him, and kind of keeping that memory alive. And like to your point too, I've had people sort of engage with me and be like, thank you for sharing the work that you've shared or the message that you've shared or the content that you share, because it's inspired me to try and do more or step up and build community or try this out in my creative career. And I never thought like that I would be inspiring people just with these simple things that I just sort of, like you said, put out there into the abyss, because you feel like it gets lost. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Keith Haring's work was synonymous of that time. Like you can't even like talk about the 80s art without mentioning him.
Yeah.
Like it's very ingrained in my, like I can see it without seeing it, like in
Yeah.
front of me. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. And even in Phoenix, I have a picture of my friend. I took a picture of him. I don't think it was a Keith Haring uh It was on the side of a building, so it was like it wasn't. I know it wasn't him, but someone had been inspired to do a style like him.
I like him.
Yeah, because it was of that time because it was, but it
Yeah.
was again, it's like,
That influence is lasting, everlasting, and
so
out
you
there.
never know, and I think that's the one thing about being an artist is being pushed, and being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Speaking
yeah,
is very uncomfortable for most of us,
yeah.
but now what we're doing now, like, we didn't plan any of this, by the way.
Mhm.
We've just riffed for an hour. And I
Yeah,
just had pictures, right? So, I think that that's one of the muscles that it actually flexes a lot is after doing it so many times, is we can just chit chat about anything,
yeah,
hopefully make it interesting, on topic, and inspire other people to do the same.
yeah, yeah. That's what I think our ultimate goal here is to be like, yes, presenting can be scary, but it's actually super fun once you finally do it. You know, it's like Michael's, you use the analogy of like diving off the deep end of the pool and then having a lot of fun and be like, I want to do it again right away. It is
Yeah,
that
being on the high dive.
being
Being
on
on
the
the
high.
high dive, you're super scared of the butterflies, and
Yeah,
then you jump and you're like, "Oh, that wasn't so bad," and you actually wanna do it
you want
more.
to do it again right away. Yeah, yeah.
That's
And
what public speaking is all about, and I just had it recently. I'll end with this. I spoke, a week before, our Type Thursday events on the 31st. I
yeah.
actually spoke in Tucson on the 24th. I literally just put slides together. I didn't practice my speech, but it was all about me, so I knew,
Mhm.
like, what I would needed to talk about. I was like, I had about 80 slides, okay? Because when I had just learned recently through there was a woman who was speaking at Creative Pro Week, and she was talking about engaging in presentations. And
Yeah,
then someone asked her, "How many slides do you have?" And she said like 160 for an hour talk, and we're just like blown away. And the reason why we didn't think about it because the way that she went through them, it all every slide enhanced what she was talking about.
yeah,
So it actually it was such a seamless thing in and out, and she was really good at just like controlling what she was talking about, but also the slides. The slides were also engaging. The transitions were not jarring. So
nice.
again, putting yourself out there. I when I talked um, in Tucson, I actually had a little bit of an extra added element of like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. It's either the best or the worst. I had a world class type designer that was going to sit in on my
Oh,
talk about typography,
yeah,
and I could either be intimidated and
yeah,
uh, overthink it, or I'm like, well, here we go.
yeah,
So I did. She loved it. Her name is Laura Worthington. I got to know her that day, and that is the extra added benefit of this. I'm seen as an expert in this, but also these connections will get me other opportunities.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that, Michael. I love hearing about that, and I kind of was also thinking of like, I would love to see because you've been to Comic Con 3 times now. I think
I
is
get
it
yeah, maybe
counting that?
more.
Yeah, maybe more. And I'm like, I would love to see it if you go back as Disco Machine and sit down on the panel, and you were a Disco Machine on the panel, and like you were your character of yourself to the audience, like so that like that would almost be a really fun way to bringing this all back together for
Full
the.
circle. That would be amazing. Absolutely. I never thought about that. And again, I never thought myself as a character, but
Yeah. Well,
obviously
you
it's
were. You were an entertainment icon in that culture, in the subculture, and I think that's the cool piece to this is there's, like I said, it's your superhero alter ego, Disco Machine, and you lived that identity, you said, as you mentioned, for like 13 years or so. So the people know and remember, and then you have that identity, and like, how cool would it be to like bring that back and a fun way where you're cosplaying as your character, as you, and then also being on a panel and having fun with that personality on the panel where you could even kind of play it with the guys in some way where do you get up and do something that's like I don't know, a wrestling move or something like, yeah, just
yeah.
something funny to like just disrupt the energy but get everyone else excited and clapping and into it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's another thing too that I someone said to me, and I'll end with this that not everybody gets to do this,
yeah,
and but I also say that to artists that I talk to, we're very lucky that we get to be artists. So
Yes.
every day we don't do it, we're denying not only ourselves, but the world
Mm.
of our talent, and we're not adding art to the world.
Ooh.
So that's the bigger point here. So not everybody gets to do this, and there's a lot of people that can sit back and criticize it, but they would never pick up a brush. They would never take a chance on making anything that would be criticized. So take advantage of that and use it to your advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's every day that we are making, we're contributing something extremely valuable to the world. And every day that we're not making something that's like, oh, are you holding back now? You want to share that out. I like that because I've been always pushing myself to sketch more and try to sketch daily. It's sort of a challenge to myself to find a way that I can sketch even in the simplest, like, pencils, line work, just something simple. So
Something.
thank you for pushing me to continue to create more often, because sometimes I feel like, oh, the direction we get pushed in this modern world is like business, business, business. And yeah, as a designer, get pushed into marketing and KPIs and all this other stuff of
Yep.
like, you got to learn what these things mean in order to succeed and to get your stuff out there. So, but at the end of the day, being human is we have this uniquely creative ability. And there's something special about creating art, expressing your, imagination and putting that out into the world, and then inspiring other people. You never know who's going to be inspired by what you make. So get out there and make it.
Yep. And I
Share it.
I use I use AI in my work, but AI could not create the experiences that I've had in my career. So you have to do those human experiences and be the biggest and best artist that you can.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes, get out there. Matteo, where can we find you on all the socials?
You can check me out on LinkedIn at Matheo Cadena. You can find me on Instagram at Matteo Mr. Owl. You can find me on, I guess, Facebook at Matteo Cadena as well. And I'm most active on Instagram, I'll say, in our live streams here on LinkedIn too. Check out on Instagram, type Thursday Los Angeles. And Michael, where can they find you?
Yes, I'm at Mondragon Design. Let me see if I can. Oh, it won't let me do. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
So yes, so you can at Mondragon Design on Instagram. I'm also on Type Thursday Phoenix PHX on Instagram as well. We're definitely trying to grow our Type Thursday groups. But yeah, definitely connect with us. We're always want to meet more people, inspire more people, talk in front of more people, and grow this artistic community. So please join us and please follow everything we're doing. It definitely helps all of that. So thank you so much for joining today. We've gone over an hour. Again, I can't believe that we just riffed on this. So thank you, Matteo, for joining me today.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you again another time.
Yeah, we'll see you. See everybody. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Comment
Sam.
below. Drop
Bye.
your comments below. See you all soon. DM